this is the challenge now, whether Russia would allow more Turkish influence in the South Caucasus or not. Mr. Erdogan has been conducting an expansionist foreign policy in the Eastern Mediterranean with Greece and Cyprus, in Libya, in Syria, and another announcement by President Erdogan, who said that where our soldiers are and will be, those areas belong to us.
I think that gives us a very good segue to Armenia, to the current situation. And I think what better way to start is, what were your perspectives on Mr. Pashinyan's segue to negotiate? Did he have any options? Was this the way it had to be done? And what are now his perspectives? Does he have a future or not?
I don't think that he has a future. I don't think that he has a future. There is a political price that usually is paid, compared to other cases also. In such situations, when such an agreement, the leader signs, prime minister or president, when the political leadership signs such an agreement, there is a political price. And I think there will be a political price. I mean, sooner or later, the price will be paid. And the price is change in the leadership. And that a new leadership comes, and that new leadership will negotiate the final solution or agreement, mutually accepted agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Pashinyan leadership, or he himself, I think, is unable to do that, mainly because there is discontent in Armenia, and I do sympathize with all those who say that there should be unity now in Armenia rather than division. For sure, internal discontent and divisions and clashes should be prevented by all means. By all means, should not happen. The unity of the nation should be preserved. Whether people like Pashinyan or they dislike Pashinyan, that's not the point here. That's not the issue. The issue is to maintain internal peace, to reckon, to figure out what will be the next step, and to prepare for negotiations. That's what should be done, and that's the only way, the only path. Because internal divisions, clashes, criticisms, blame, this is not the right time to do that. There will be time probably in the future, right? Because what is urgent now is to hold the nation together, because we are heading towards a very important stage. Nothing is solved, as I told you a while ago. We have a ceasefire agreement, nothing else. And we need to prepare for negotiations. Now, change of leadership, that's the political price. I read a while ago, before we started our interview, I read a while ago about the resignation of the foreign minister of Armenia, Zohrab Manasaganian. Probably this needs confirmation, but it's already circulated in the media. So this and other government officials are submitting their resignations. So this is a signal that the current leadership cannot lead the coming stage, the political stage that is actually the negotiations. Armenia needs unity. Armenia needs a negotiating team, that is able, willing to negotiate, and serious, able, willing, and serious to bring an end to the conflict. Now, Azerbaijan retook the adjacent parts, the adjacent territories. This is not the time to think about revenge or war. This is the time to think about, I said a while ago, to reckon, to ration, and to get rid of maximalist aims and go to the negotiations table with a strong team, negotiating team, able and willing to argue in favor of the rights of the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabagh, in favor of their security, their identity, because President Aliyev has been repeating during the war that he will only grant the Karabakh Armenians cultural autonomy. These are his words. We don't know what does that mean. So we need to negotiate. What does it mean, cultural autonomy? Negotiations will decide. I think if Azerbaijan also is serious to find a solution to this conflict, those positions actually will change in the long run. And there is the possibility to reach a mutually acceptable agreement now that the adjacent territories, Azerbaijan actually returned them. So the rest will be negotiated on the table. Back to probably the previous format, the Madrid format, probably with some changes, and we'll see. That's the political price.
Then here we really have to say, what factors make you confident and concerned that the Armenian nation is able to rev up for the upcoming negotiations? Because it is also a question of the people. I think, where are the factors that can seed unity right now that enables Armenia to unite behind a common position? Because yes, a political price is to be paid. However, we don't want the political system to abdicate of democracy.
Right. There is democracy in Armenia. In 2008, we witnessed what happened when Pashinyan came to power. There is democracy in Armenia. There are the institutions, and I think within that context, the people of Armenia are able to practice democracy once again. Now, what the Constitution says, that's something. We have a Constitution and we have institutions. So there will be no vacuum. And those structures, the institutions, and the constitutional provisions are guarantee that there will be no division and that the Armenians are able to reshape a new leadership, elect a new leadership that would actually go to the negotiations table and with the necessary background information and the knowledge, very important, the information and the knowledge to be able to negotiate a mutually acceptable solution. Because if the solution is not mutually acceptable, the conflict will not be resolved. Azerbaijan should probably, in the coming months, we will witness some compromises, probably I say, if Azerbaijan needs a mutually acceptable solution. If, then certain compromises could be rendered by Azerbaijan for the sake of the mutually acceptable peace and the solution. Otherwise, the conflict cannot be resolved. As I said a while ago, security is ontological. Identity is ontological need. And these needs, life, freedom. The Karabakh Armenians, no way. Yes, now Karabakh is within Azerbaijan, and it was. But there is no way, never, that Karabakh Armenians will never accept to be subordinate as they were in Soviet times. Azerbaijan should acknowledge these issues and should acknowledge that a degree of freedom should be granted to Karabakh Armenians in Stepanakert and in the areas around Stepanakert, those areas that are still in Armenian hands, under Armenian control. So there is a long way to go ahead. Negotiations may continue for, I don't know, for a long time. I cannot predict, but these things are not, these issues cannot be concluded in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds of negotiations.
Yeah.
Particularly negotiations, and Lavrov already acknowledged that the other co-chairs of the Minsk group should participate in the negotiations. And Russia cannot conduct negotiations alone because it cannot ignore the international community. That's why Lavrov said, I'm going to brief my friends, the co-chairs at the UN. There is no escape. Now, it was very unfortunate that the United States was preoccupied with elections and France was preoccupied with the conflict in the Eastern Mediterranean with Turkey and Libya. So very unfortunate timing, and Turkey benefited from that situation. It was planned, by the way. The attack was planned, and it seems that it was the right moment for Azerbaijan and Turkey to launch the attack. This was what happened. I mean, things are very clear. That's why for 44 days, I mean, nobody, the international community, the war was taking place under the eyes of the international community, in front of the eyes of the international community, and nothing was done. Nothing was done. But this is not a solution. The ceasefire is not a solution. And in conflict resolution, it's here that the real challenge starts. It begins. It begins. This is a challenge now. And the OSCE Minsk group, Russia, a member, should face the challenge. If there is, Putin said 2 days ago that we should not use the word conflict anymore. I disagree. The conflict is still there. It's not solved. I mean, that's manipulation by President Putin. The conflict is there. It's not solved. So how we won't use the word conflict anymore? Okay, then if we are, from his perspective, if we want to forget the word conflict, then back to the negotiations table and back to the mutually acceptable solution. Acceptable for Armenia, acceptable for the people of Karabakh, acceptable for Azerbaijan.
I think this brings us to our really last question. There's a searching of Armenian leadership to go to the negotiations table. But what can civil society do? How can we empower young and emerging leaders to do their part in the conflict resolution process?
You are raising a very important point. Very important point. This is one of the things that was missing during the 26 years of negotiations. That track one diplomacy was always adapted. Negotiations at the top by the politicians without informing the bottom, grassroots. What was being negotiated at the top? A mistake that should not be repeated. Now, if we want to conduct negotiations, we need the top level, we need the politicians, we need track one diplomacy. At the end of the day, those leaders are going to sign the agreement, but we also need support from the bottom, civil society groups, not only in Armenia, but also in Azerbaijan, also in Karabakh. NGOs are everywhere. And there is a long literature on some activities by NGOs in Karabakh, in Armenia, and in Azerbaijan. In Azerbaijan, the authoritarian regime didn't allow them to function, although there were, mutual visits. Sometimes journalists went to Azerbaijan, Azerbaijani journalists came to Armenia. That was not sufficient. The grassroots, you need to activate the grassroots. You need to keep the people informed. This is very important in conflict resolution. I remember very well in 2019 when Pashinyan met Aliyev. 2019, yes, when Pashinyan met Aliyev. Both of them adapted. It's not a principle, but they adapted the idea that preparing both peoples for peace. How you prepare both peoples for peace without informing the grassroots what is taking place at the top in the closed rooms during negotiations. Okay, if we need to prepare both peoples for peace, then let Azerbaijan does its homework rather than using negative rhetoric, because the rhetoric and the discourse that President Aliyev used during the war was unacceptable at all. That's not diplomacy. That's not diplomacy. For example, very quickly, I remember when he said, "We will expel them like dogs from Karabakh." This is not diplomatic language. This is not proper language, and he should refrain from using such language. That doesn't prepare the peoples for peace. Trust cannot be established overnight. There's a long way. It may not be established, by the way. This is very difficult. That's why at the beginning of our interview, I said asymmetric conflicts are very difficult to solve, and ethno-territorial conflicts are very difficult to solve. You need confidence building measures, you need to establish trust, and you need to engage the bottom. You need to engage the grassroots, and you need to engage the middle, the academicians, the journalists, the clergy, civil society. You need to engage all levels of society in Armenia and in Azerbaijan so that a mutually acceptable solution is reached and negotiated. Otherwise, unfortunately, I regret to say it, peace cannot be established and the conflict cannot be solved. The Karabakh Armenian in Karabakh should feel secure, that his physical safety is priority, and he should feel secure. These are not these. This is not easy at all, and it may take time. Yes, it takes time. And I have in mind what happened in Yugoslavia, for example. Until today, there are villages where the refugees did not return in Yugoslavia. I have in mind the conflict in Lebanon, in Mount Lebanon. Until today, in some villages, the refugees did not return. That trust was not established at the grassroots level. And this is very important. I completely agree with you when you refer to civil society groups. Their role is crucial in making the peace and building the peace, by the way. Not only making it, but building it. Peace is something that should be built step by step. And it takes time. Sometimes may not succeed, may not succeed. It's a torturous, as one of the scholars describes it in Peace Building, in one of his books, that this is a torturous journey. It's a torturous journey. And we need to be patient. That's why a while ago I said unity now is priority. Putting aside all the arguments, counter arguments. It's not the time to blame the other. Let things go smoothly, and I believe the institutions, the structures in Armenia, and the constitution are guarantees that a new page will open soon, and we go to the negotiations to address the conflict, because the conflict is not solved, and to heal the wounds. That comes next. That takes a long time.
Dear Ohannes, thank you for this unequivocal call to action from the civil society and from the leadership to go to the negotiation table. We say thank you for you embodying the perspectives of our first speaker of the special series on the future. And thank you for your time, perspectives, and wisdom. And let us know if you have any concluding remarks.
My concluding remarks, I'm still optimistic. I am optimistic. Although there is anger, there is fear, there is frustration, but I'm optimistic that the nation can unite. The nation, because the diaspora is calling for unity. The diaspora is mobilizing for support. So Armenia is not alone. There is a strong diaspora still ready, although there is the defeat on the battlefield, but I mean the diaspora is still active, supportive, and certainly willing to help, to render assistance at all stages and levels, because we don't want to lose Armenia, and we don't want to lose Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabagh. We don't want, and we will not, provided that we are united and we go to the negotiations united, and let the negotiations determine the final status of Nagorno-Karabagh. It is wrong to predetermine things now. There is no predetermined solution to this conflict, not at all. So unity in Armenia, unity in the diaspora are the guarantees to reach peace. Again, I say, and solve this conflict, provided that the other side, the Azerbaijani side, is also ready to address it, to be realistic, to be aware, and to acknowledge that there is a particular identity there that should live freely and determine its fate. Now, I leave it I leave it here. And I think, I mean, optimism still dominates, and hopefully we go together and achieve our ends. A Karabakh that is where Armenians are able to live, and a strong Armenia that is able to support. At the end of the day, this is one nation. Whether in Karabakh or in Armenia or in the diaspora, at the end of the day, the concerns in Armenia are our concerns in the diaspora, and we look forward to establish a strong Armenia that is able actually to meet the challenges in the future. This is the challenge that the Armenian nation should meet. If we don't, then we'll be defeated. This is not a defeat. Probably part of, I mean, there is a bit emotion here, but at the same time, there is rationality, because the conflict is not solved. This is a ceasefire. Yes, there is frustration. The adjacent territories were never part of our Nagorno-Karabakh, even in Soviet times. Let's forget it. Let's forget it. Yes, I know many people, many soldiers sacrificed their lives. I mean, those are the heroes for the sake of the nation. I mean, this happens in such battles and in such times. But I mean, the important thing is that the nation is preserved, and certainly it flourishes and it becomes stronger in the future. These are my concluding remarks.
Powerful words to take home. Dr. Ohannes Geukjian, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for you. Thanks a lot.